My name is Art McDonald. I'm a retired Unitarian Universalist minister, last serving the Unitarian Universalist Church of Essex, Massachusetts. I'm also a member of Veterans for Peace, both locally and nationally, as a Vietnam-era veteran 1969 to 72. I live in Salem, Massachusetts. As part of Congressional District Number 6 here in Massachusetts, Seth Moulton's district, I and several others on this recording are associated with Mass Peace Action, a Cambridge-based peace and social justice organization. In these last several years, we have been engaged in trying to develop a constituent-based relationship with Congressman Moulton, dialoguing with him mostly around issues of war and peace, specifically regarding the war in Russia and Ukraine, then more recently, since October 2023, the conflict with Israel and Palestine. In that span, I would guess we have had 4 or 5 direct conversations with the congressman, either in person or on Zoom, and just as many with members of his staff, both locally in Salem and on Zoom with his foreign policy folks. Most recently, we had a 20-minute Zoom conference with him and his foreign policy team on February 6, 2025. At that meeting, 5 of us presented our relatively brief prepared remarks. Included in these remarks were specific actions we asked the congressman to take. After we offered these remarks, we asked Congressman Moulton for his response. Though he did respond, he suggested that he had another meeting and could only stay on for 1 to 2 minutes. I'm now going to ask 5 presenters to share their remarks, first introducing each of themselves, followed by their commentary and asks. We'll start with Ron Fox.
Thank you, Art. Good morning, Congressman Moulton. I am Ronald Fox, an 85-year-old Jewish resident of Marblehead. Starting about 50 years ago, I founded the first Center for Divorce Mediation in Massachusetts. I worked for Fred Harris for president, ran the Public Interest Career Center at Harvard Law School with a lithograph on my wall that said in Hebrew, "Justice, justice shall ye pursue." I've also been active in the Jewish community all my life, and for the last 50 years, almost every day, have read, written, or spoken about Israel's countless violations of the human and civil rights of Palestinians, primarily in the West Bank. I've written in detail about this brutality that took place before October 7, 2023, to you and your predecessors so many times over the last 30 years that I imagine you have committed it to memory. In short, this includes Israel's illegal occupation, the illegal settlements, the killings and torture of thousands, massive destruction of homes and olive trees, diverted water, stolen land, building of an illegal wall, 2 legal systems, incarceration of thousands without a trial, etc., etc., etc. So after October 7, 2023, an attack we all condemn, Israel unleashed an unbridled, unprecedented campaign of hate and vengeance in Gaza, resulting so far in 55,000 dead, 90% displaced, and 69% of the buildings destroyed. Substantial evidence of 77 years of brutal, barbaric, inhuman, cruel, and racist treatment by Israel of Palestinians. You, Mr. Biden, Mr. Blinken, and the Democratic Party took no meaningful action to end this while continuing to send weapons as the public and media saw anti-Semitism in every peaceful student in every UN country calling for an end of the massacres. And now, with a temporary ceasefire, Israel has continued to rain death and destruction in the West Bank. Your response to our request that you endorse a ceasefire was to repeat that Hamas must be destroyed and we should work with our Israeli allies. As an aside, as a military man, is it clear to you that Hamas was ever a viable threat to Israel needing to be destroyed? In your response, you made no reference to the history prior to October 7, 2023, no mention of whether it's apartheid, no mention of whether it's genocide. After 50 years of advocacy, I'm heartbroken and frustrated. I do not think that anything that Israel does to Palestinians will get you or the Democratic Party to say enough and press genuine demands on Israel to end its drive from the river to the sea, free of Palestinians. You and the Democratic Party that wanted to appeal to the core values of the party would condemn Netanyahu and Israel for its apartheid and genocide, and would demand a permanent ceasefire, no more weapons for Israel, an end to the occupation, the closing of the settlements, and questioning the appropriateness of a theocracy in today's world, equal rights for Palestinians. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Ron. Susan Nicholson.
Susan Nicholson, a resident of Gloucester, a retired health law attorney, and also a member of Mass Peace Action. Representative Moulton, we reject your response to the International Criminal Court's issuance of arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. When earlier this year, House Republicans supported legislation sanctioning the ICC for its action, you were the only one of our 9 Massachusetts representatives who failed to oppose that legislation. Then, to make matters worse, you took the initiative of signing a January 9 letter to the governing body of the ICC, castigating the court for its actions. The letter you signed claims that because Israel is a democracy with an independent judiciary capable of addressing allegations of misconduct, the ICC is barred by the principle of complementarity from issuing warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. That claim fundamentally misrepresents the principle of complementarity. The principle is an important part of the Rome Statute, which established the ICC. And the principle does bar the ICC from acting if a national court is willing and able to prosecute. But for the principle to apply, 2 conditions must first be met. 1, the national court must be investigating the same individuals. 2, for the same conduct. This is commonly referred to in ICC jurisprudence as the same person, same conduct test. It is not enough that the national court is capable of investigating those same individuals for the same conduct. It must actually be doing so. Now, as I'm sure you know, in November 2024, the ICC issued arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant for, among other offenses, 1, the war crime of using starvation of the civilian population as a weapon of war, and 2, the crime against humanity of intentionally limiting medical supplies from getting into Gaza, thereby inflicting great suffering, such as forcing doctors to amputate the limbs of children without anesthesia. Representative Moulton, I ask you if you are aware of any investigation opened by the government of Israel against Netanyahu and Gallant for the war crime of intentional starvation of the civilian population of Gaza, or the crime against humanity of deliberately limiting medical supplies. Your honest answer to this question has to be, no, I am not. In which case you should not have signed the January 9th letter. Accordingly, we request that you, 1, take your name off that letter, and 2, commit to us that you will oppose any legislation sanctioning the ICC. Unfortunately, it is actions such as yours, not the actions of the ICC, that delegitimize the ICC and undermine the international system of human rights law upon which we all depend. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Susan. Bob Mason.
Congressman Moulton, my name is Bob Mason. I'm a resident of Beverly, a retired social worker, and a member of Jewish Voice for Peace. Israel has exhibited hegemonic, expansionist aims in Lebanon, Syria, and in the West Bank, as well as in Gaza. This goes well beyond defensive security measures. Political leaders, including Netanyahu, have made their intention clear, referring to a greater Israel from the river to the sea. They have stated that they have no intention of tolerating an independent Palestinian state. Trump's proposal to displace all of the Palestinians from Gaza so it can be rebuilt into a Middle East Riviera aligns with Israel's expansionist vision. Disturbingly, this also aligns with much of the Jewish Israeli population's views of Palestinians. Longtime Haaretz columnist Gideon Levy, in an article titled "No Innocents in Gaza," reflecting on Israel's first fascist war, published on January the 23rd, wrote, quote, "Israel has become a state that aspires to the killing and destruction of Arabs solely for the sake of killing and destroying Arabs," unquote. It is too easy to see how Israel may justify relaunching the genocide in Gaza and expand it beyond ethnic cleansing to the West Bank. In light of the historical context provided by Ron and what has been happening since October 7th, 2023, in accordance with U.S. and international law, we demand that you call for an end to all U.S. military assistance to Israel and an international arms embargo. This is a moral imperative equivalent to opposing the Holocaust.
Thank you, Bob. Jill El-Ashkar.
Good morning, Congressman Moulton. My name is Jill El-Ashkar. I'm a Salem resident, a member of Mass Peace Action and the Alliance Water for Justice in Palestine. I have had to do much soul searching over the last 15 months. I used to be proud to call Salem, Mass, where I was born and raised, and USA my home. I was busy raising 4 children, working full-time, helping my community, and just surviving like the rest of our middle-class neighbors and friends. I have been blessed to have firsthand experience and exposure to the Palestinian occupation of 75 years. My husband of 34 years is Palestinian, who spent the first 6 years of his life in a refugee camp. I have lived, prayed, broke bread, laughed, and played with numerous families and children in the cities and the beaches of Gaza. The anger and agony of the past 15 months wells up inside of me. I am part of them and they are part of me. We are the same. We are human, with human rights and human needs. I ask you, are you human? You speak and email your constituents about the senseless murders of thousands of Palestinian children, yet do you really see them? Those children are your children. They are my children. They are the world's children. They are generations of children born into circumstances beyond their control. You could make a difference for these children and have chosen not to. There is no substance behind your words. Whenever you are asked why you have not voted to end this genocide, you say because of Hamas. Hamas must be defeated. Have you ever really delved into who Hamas is and isn't, or have just drank the Zionist and USA Kool-Aid? None of my Gazan family members would consider themselves Hamas, yet 10 of them are dead. 6 from American bombs dropped on their homes and subsequent tents, and 4 from not being able to get medications they needed to survive. 10 beautiful lives lost, all of whom have died within the last 2 months of this 15-month genocide. My brother-in-law and his beautiful family of 6 made their way back through the rubble to the rubble of their home. They are steadfast to stay on the land that has been in their family for generations, steadfast to survive, steadfast to not give up, steadfast as Palestinians to live their lives in the name of Allah, not in the name of Hamas. Hamas has shined a spotlight on the suffering of Palestinian people. This suffering has endured for over 75 years. Members and founders of Hamas were born into occupation. They watched their family members murdered, denied freedoms you and I take for granted every day, jailed, beaten, starved, denied their human rights and dignity. Yet so have the civilians of Palestine. You cannot separate their lived experiences, their suffering, their desires to help one another live and survive in apartheid and then a genocide. What you must do is dig deeper, speak louder about the Palestine genocide and how it can be stopped permanently. This is what many of your constituents have been imploring you to do for months. Find your humanity, find your human voice, find the voice you would use if your family had to suffer this existence. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Jane Pulkkinen.
This is Jane Pulkkinen. I am a resident of Gloucester, member of the North Shore Meeting of Friends, otherwise known as Quakers. And I was a member of the North Shore Coalition for Peace and Justice while it was still meeting before the pandemic. I would like to speak to some concerns I have regarding some statements you, Representative Moulton, made in a letter sent to me as one of your constituents. Number one, quote, Palestinians deserve to live without fear of being killed by an Israeli bomb falling from the sky. I believe it is disingenuous not to acknowledge that bombs falling from the sky in Gaza have been actually American-Israeli bombs, and that we Americans have, in fact, been enabling the killing and maiming of innocents in Gaza for over a year. Number two, quote, the Israeli ... The Israeli government, like every other country that received U.S. military aid, must use the weapons it receives from the United States in a legal and responsible manner, unquote. Clearly, Israel has not used these weapons in a legal and responsible manner. It has violated U.S. and international laws and has been called out by numerous humanitarian organizations for violations of human rights. Number three, you list things that you have done to urge the Israeli government to prioritize civilian lives and to encourage more aid for the Palestinian people. But in fact, these things have fallen on deaf ears because Israel has not prioritized civilian lives from the beginning, and in fact has done intentionally quite the opposite, for which there is abundant evidence. Number four, quote, this war would end immediately if these terrorists would surrender. While there was an urgent need to save innocent lives, the most efficient way to have saved lives would have been to tell our ally, the time has come that we can no longer participate with you in the committing of war crimes, and therefore must terminate our provision of weapons. You yourself have been known to say that there are times when friends need to say hard things to friends. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jane. I'll ask now, we had two other participants at our meeting with Congressman Moulton who have been with us for over these last years, and I'll ask Christian and Sunny to simply introduce themselves.
My name is Kristen Seashore. I'm a resident of Ipswich, a member of MAPA Congressional District 6 group, and I'm a retired social worker, and I serve on the Ipswich Democratic Town Committee. Thank you.
And I'm Sunny Robinson, retired public health nurse from Gloucester, active member of MAPA for years and years and years. And while I was not able to be a part of the meeting, I am both honored and humbled to be a member of this ongoing group.
Thank you, Sunny and Christian. As a way of summarizing, I want to go over quickly our demands of Congressman Moulton. We're asking for a permanent ceasefire, no more weapons to Israel, an end to the occupation, the closing of settlements, equal rights for Palestinians, removing your name from the letter castigating the ICC for issuing warrants, and committing to opposing any more attempts at sanctioning the ICC. Our general experience with the congressman is that Seth Moulton has not been moved by our analysis or demands, continuing to insist that the only solution is for Hamas to be totally destroyed, as has been mentioned by a number of us. A goal even Secretary Blinken, former Secretary Blinken, shortly before leaving office acknowledged was impossible. In fact, he went on, Hamas has replaced the many fighters who have been killed. That is, the war has only created more volunteers for Hamas. His response to us about Hamas in comparing it to Israel was, Hamas are terrorists. Israel is merely an imperfect ally despite the mass destruction of Palestine. Overall, we have tried to encourage Congressman Moulton to focus on his role as a diplomat, as a U.S. elected official of the people, and stop analyzing the conflict in military terms and thinking as a military strategist, as if he were still a member of the military, using his experience from 4 tours of duty in Iraq as his lens for what should happen in Palestine. We appreciate the opportunity to share our ideas with you and encourage us all to work for an end to war as a solution to political differences. It is time for peace and negotiation. Thank you.